Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here on the hazardous weather graphics, yellow area signifying a wind advisory that's out for the eastern Alaska range, mainly through the passes and mostly west of the Toe Cutoff, and that's out until midnight tonight. Looking for 20 to 30 mile per hour winds sustained with gusts maybe up around 50 miles an hour. And again, that's out until midnight tonight, and then they'll either drop it or, kick it out longer. And otherwise, that's it for advisories, watches, and warnings for the land areas around the state today. As you can see, nowhere else is lit up. But there are storm warnings coming in to effect due to a storm here that's going to roll up toward Kodiak and the North Gulf Coast tomorrow. Otherwise, we had kind of some leftover cloudiness here in the Gulf coming onshore with the continued southeast wind flow here from the Gulf of Alaska. And clouds, mostly cloudy day over the southeast coast there with a few light rain showers, sprinkles, or rain and snow mix, depending on your elevation down there, but amounts are quite light. Winds were fairly light also, or were light. And not the case in south central Alaska and some areas in the channeled areas like Turnagain Arm. McHugh Creek seeing gusts around, let's see, what was it, 68 miles per hour earlier today. And about 35 miles an hour in West Anchorage at the International Airport, at Ted Stevens International Airport. And that pushed the temperature up to at least 43 degrees. The actual high may be 1 or 2 degrees higher than that. But other areas with no wind were generally below freezing up in the Susitna Valley area. And kind of a contrast here in temperatures across the southwest. McGrath, 2 degrees below zero. Sparrowvon, 37 above. Of course, Sparrowvon's got the elevation there, and a little bit farther to the south, so in the warm air aloft. Front, not all that impressive looking here as it approaches Kodiak Island with some rain, but not bad circulation here right over the Fox Islands and Alaska Peninsula area there. But the front kicking the winds up to about 55 miles an hour at Cape Newenham, with St. George Island seeing gusts to 60 miles an hour out of the north this afternoon on the back edge there, that we call the bent back occlusion, and some pretty gusty winds in wet areas west of Unalaska. Otherwise, you just see on the edge of the chart there kind of another mass of clouds starting to bring some clouds into the far western Aleutians, but winds at this point not all that strong. And on the chart today, got some clouds and a few light scattered snow showers in southeast flow here across the Seward Peninsula from Norton Sound, and maybe some light snow shower activity in the Alaska Range, but not much at all. Otherwise, pretty good all the way up to the Arctic coast. Not much of any fog or low clouds, or definitely no snowfall. Again, some sprinkles over the northern southeast coast. Again, just a few hundredths of an inch in the areas that got it down there. High pressure here just to the east, now at the surface, starting to pull off a little bit there. Frontal position right through here. Gusty winds and areas of rain here southwest coast into the Kodiak Island area. And then those strong winds coming in just west of Unalaska there, kind of in that trough axis. But that may pick up as this low had pulled northward there. Again, seeing actually 40 to 50 mile an hour winds across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area today. Even the inland areas, lighter winds to the north and showers out to the west. And for tonight, this low, actually a new low center forms. This is the original one right there. Down in here, a couple of these troughs combine, and a new, went the wrong way. There we go. Back, and this low center pulls up about 971 millibars. This one sort of stays put there maybe drifts to the east a little bit, but that's going to increase the wind and rain with that next frontal boundary coming into Kodiak later on tonight. Moderate to heavy amounts of rain. Initial front really washes out here as it approaches the north coast of the Panhandle and hangs up along the eastern North Gulf Coast for light rain, and it won't be much of a factor beyond this point. Clouds about the same as we saw today. The precipitation having a tough time getting any farther inland. Just maybe a few scattered showers, and that's it with the cloudiness, and then dry and mostly clear from, well, areas north of the Alaska Range down to the northern Kuskokwim Valley, all the way up to the Beaufort Sea coast. Maybe some lower stuff in the northern Koyukuk Valley around Bettles could result in some flurries, and maybe some clouds here over the 40-mile country, and mostly cloudy for the Panhandle. Strong northwest winds. Could see gusts 50 to 60 miles an hour to the northwest in the windier areas of the Unalaska Unmac Island locations. And then for Sunday, tomorrow, dry, cool, light winds, Arctic coast, North Slope, Brooks Range, all the way down the east side here, 1,020 millibar high just east of the border there in the Yukon. And gradient tightening up here along the coast, good for gales and storm force winds, especially in advance of the front tomorrow. Precipitation, not much, really nothing significant. Maybe some snow showers along the North Gulf Coast and the mountains. Mixture of precipitation again here for Kenai Peninsula. Again, upslope areas, pretty good gradient out of the east-northeast here for areas like Anchorage, from Anchor Point all the way up to actually Eagle River and Palmer in the Matanuska Valley. And could be some light snow here over the southwest interior, tapering off the showers up toward the Seward Peninsula. Another zone of some light precipitation in the form of snow in the colder air out over the eastern Bering Sea. Break here, next storm coming in, and that'll increase the winds, probably to gale force, if not by tomorrow afternoon, then probably for overnight Sunday night and into Monday. Not a bad day for the east central Aleutians tomorrow, and then that low tracks eastward here. And the front weakens, so you lose the, if there's any gales and storms with it, you'll lose it and probably barely be small craft advisories here in the eastern Aleutians by the time it arrives, with some light rain. Low pressure starting to weaken here near Kodiak Island or just to the south. This front pushing, not very strong, pushing a band of light rain into the Panhandle, and not much of an increase in the winds, not much of a factor with it. But that's about it. Up to the north, again, not much going on, just dry and cool. Into the central interior, maybe some light scattered isolated snow showers along the Alaska Range, maybe a flurry or two in and around the Bettles area. And some of this could slip on maybe into the Eagle area, just a chance of some light snow, mostly cloudy skies. And for lows tonight, generally 5 below to 15 below. Here over the eastern interior, or you could call it 5 above to 15 below. That's 6 at Eagle, and 7 above there at Gulkana in the Copper River Basin. Upper 20s, lower 30s, south central Alaska. 40 for the low at Kodiak, and mid to upper 30s there for the Alaska Peninsula. Lower 30s Pribilofs, mid 30s there for the central Aleutians. Southeast coast here, 25 to 35 should sum it up pretty good there. And the Arctic coast on the east side, either side of 0. Up there by a little ways, and mostly 0 to 7 above on the west side. Mid-teens over the northwest along the northwest coast, mid-20s south side of the Seward Peninsula at Nome. And then for the highs tomorrow, staying below 0 at Fort Yukon, 12 below, and Chokitzik. Mid-afternoon today, they were sitting at 23 degrees below 0 with, I think, 21 below at Fort Yukon. So that's something of a warm-up for the highs tomorrow there, maybe. And looking at single numbers, teens, Arctic coast, down into the, back into the lower 40s here, or near 40 for the Bristol Bay area, lower 40s for the Peninsula and Eastern Aleutians, near 40 for Adak, and highs in the 30s, mid to upper for the southeast coast, with looking at overnight lows in the mid-teens there for the Copper River Basin, and anywhere from 5 to 15 above in the Tanana Valley. Some areas could stay below 0 through tomorrow afternoon. So Fairbanks was 3 p.m. was right at 0, and otherwise kind of a spread here across the Seward Peninsula. 15 at Shishmur, up to 27 at Nome, and then 31 Sovunga. Overnight lows Monday morning about the same, except maybe a little chillier here in the Tok Northway area, down to possibly as low as 20 degrees below 0. And -5 to -15 here elsewhere over the eastern part of the state, up to the Brooks Range. again, staying above zero along the Arctic coast. Some areas on the North Slope could get in that 5 to 10 below range possibly. And a little cooler Yukon Delta, looking at lows in the teens. Kuskokwim Delta, south of the river there, mostly in the 20s, and then lower 30s for Bristol Bay. And looking at mid to upper 30s for your lows, or I'm sorry, for the lows Monday morning here for the Alaska Peninsula, and 30s all the way out to Shemya, southeast coast. Lows not too bad, upper 20s to upper 30s, right at zero there for Gulkana, Valdez 29. Afternoon highs 5 to 12 above there for the Arctic coast, and still showing a warming trend there over the upper Yukon Valley. Now the highs about 6 below, or 0 to 6 below, and that about the same all the way down to the North Wyandotte area, but then south of the eastern Alaska range, mid-teens, and upper 30s to lower 40s there for the southeast coast for the highs, and mostly above freezing in the lower to mid to maybe upper 30s here south central Alaska. Definitely the North Gulf Coast, mid-40s, Kodiak Island, and mid-30s to lower 40s, Bristol Bay, lower 40s to near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula, near 40 for the central Aleutians, and out here in the Bering Sea, mid-30s in the Pribilofs to right around 31 there, St. Lawrence Island.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather, IFR, northern Bering Sea, up to St. Lawrence Island, into Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta, out along the coast. Marginal VFR, a little farther to the east, and some IFR here across Unmak Island, marginal for Unalaska Island, marginal for the Alaska Peninsula. IFR here for the Aleutian Range on up into near or just west of Dillingham, and then over to Togiak, IFR, Kodiak Island, on up in and along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, and also Kamishak Bay, marginal VFR Cook Inlet, and some marginal stuff from Prince William Sound up to the Talkeetna's western Copper River Basin to the Alaska Range. VFR here over the west central interior up to the northwest coast. VFR also on the east side there in between these areas of marginal VFR and the southeast coast. Good VFR under high pressure, although it is slowly shifting off to the east. And then for the afternoon hours, you can see the IFR rolls on in as the high pressure starts to pull a little farther away, and then marginal VFR over the western southeast coast here, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. IFR holds southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and a more organized swath here over the southeastern Bering Sea, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, on up into the northern Bering Sea. VFR with areas of marginal VFR mixed in here for the central northern interior, central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, IFR. And the next system spreading IFR almost up to Shemya and Attu. That's probably be early evening before that rolls in. And then for Monday morning, IFR here, western central Aleutians all the way to Atka. Fox Islands, marginal, Pribilofs right on the edge of the IFR here. And that extends up to, well, call it Gamble, Savunga, VFR, Yukon Delta, and the lower River Valley, or most of the River Valley here until you get up to the flats, VFR. And not too bad in the central interior, some IFR left on the central Arctic coast and North Slope. And for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, IFR band extends down and covers all of the Panhandle. And by the afternoon, you've got marginal VFR here over the northern three-quarters of the southeast coast with Prince of Wales Island, areas to the east over to Stewart and Hyder on down to Dixon Entrance in the IFR zone, IFR Gulf of Alaska, marginal VFR Copper River Basin up into the 40-mile country, upper Tanana Valley. Yukon Flats look a little marginal, but good VFR here, central interior, along the Yukon River there. Kotzebue, Selawik, Ambler, Noatak Valley, good VFR, and IFR along the southwest coast, and some more IFR in the central Aleutians. And for passes tomorrow, Anaktuvik and Adigan, both looking good. VFR again. And Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional marginal VFR. At times, lowest conditions on the eastern approaches. And for rain, he's starting out marginal, becoming VFR, probably before noontime. And windy VFR the entire day with Isabel, VFR. Mentasta, VFR. Looking good for Tenita as well, VFR. And Portage, marginal to IFR conditions with the IFR most likely on the eastern entrance. And for Chilcoot and White, starting out marginal early on and then becoming VFR probably from mid-morning through the afternoon, VFR condition, or it could be VFR the entire day. And for the freezing levels here, 4,000 feet, nudged up just off the east coast Kodiak Island there with that southeast flow, but nothing like we saw earlier in the week here is with high freezing levels getting all the way up into the Arctic. 2,000 feet here, Kuskokwim Valley at the surface, hugging the coastline in across the Panhandle, and still north of St. Matthew Island. And there's some icing out here, northern Bering Sea, a band of possible icing from of the light rime variety that'll extend down to the Alaska Peninsula. More moisture with the main system here. Better chance of seeing some surges of considerable moderate rime icing, especially where the terrain's enhanced terrainment there, or enhanced by the terrain. Kenai Peninsula and maybe Kamishak Bay, Augustine Island area. And then this moving up to right along or just off the central and south coast of the Panhandle in the afternoon. Another zone here that'll sweep on up for Tuesday or Sunday night, Monday into the central Aleutians. And the jet stream, high pressure over the eastern interior down across the Panhandle, southerly flow 40 to 60 knots along the west coast. 9,000 feet, looking pretty strong here, 65 knot winds around that low center, shaping up turbulence. Considerable moderate chop here, southwest interior, North Gulf Coast, Panhandle, and the Aleutians.
Have you ever been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say happy birthday floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up, and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, And the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy, and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions,
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast here. Got gales all along the coast. On the south coast, southeast 35 to 40 knots. Right out of the east on the north coast, sustained 40 knots with seas 13 to 16 feet. Much lighter in Lynn Canal, north at 15 tomorrow, 3-foot seas. And then Stevens Passage, the exception here, north 20 with gale force gusts to 40 knots, seas at about 4 feet. Otherwise, Clarence Strait, east 15, seas 4 feet. And then for Monday, central southern inside waters, mostly southeast on the wind direction and mostly 20 knots for the speed, seas 4 feet. And Lynn Canal, variable to north at 10 with 2-foot seas, so pretty light wind conditions there. South coast coming down to 15 knots out of the east and southeast, but those seas still hanging at 18 feet. And then the north coast, south to southeast 30 knots with 16 to 17-foot seas. Moving on to Prince William Sound, gale warnings out for tomorrow. East winds sustained 35 knots, seas 7 feet. Storm warnings for the North Gulf Coast, east 50 knots, seas in the lower 20s. Storm warnings also for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay out of the east, 50 knots. Seas running 22 to 26 feet. And Southern Cook Inlet, northeast 40 knots tomorrow, seas approaching 20 feet. And north of the Forelands, northeast at 30 for small craft advisories and 12-foot seas. Coming down to 20 knots here, Northern Cook Inlet on Monday with seas subsiding to 8 feet and small craft advisories here for the area of, or for Southern Cook Inlet with 9-foot seas. Winds also less for Kamishak Bay, northeast 30, 11-foot seas. And now 25 knots for the Barren Islands, or small craft advisories there, and then down to 20 knots from the east-southeast here for the North Gulf Coast. And Prince William Sound, after the gale force blow tomorrow, back down to 15 knots out of the northeast. And for Kodiak Island, east-southeast winds 30 to 40 knots tomorrow. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, south at 20. And small craft advisories here for the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest, 25 to 30 knots with 25-knot winds on the Pacific side, north side, northwest at 30 knots. Bristol Bay, northeast winds at 30 knots with 7-foot seas. And for Monday, got kind of a split here, or a peninsula on the top side. You've got east winds at 20 knots. South side here, you got west winds at 30 knots. And then Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northeast 15, 15-foot seas. Northeast 25 for Shelikof Strait with seas at about 8 feet. And for the far western Aleutians, winds will be coming around and increasing to 30 knots there with the approach of that system. Otherwise, west 25 from Kiska toward Adak, and then the central Aleutians here, northwest or west-northwest, 30 knots. Good gales for the Fox Islands tomorrow, backside of that low, northwest, west-northwest, 40 to 45 knots, and seas in the lower 20s. Outlook for Monday, south to southeast winds, or south to east winds, 25 to 30 knots here for the Fox Islands, with those seas 10 to 12 feet. East winds 30 knots, north side of the central Aleutians, Pacific side southwest 30, and then northwest winds of 40 knots turn northerly as you head west there into that far western zone. Southwest coast tomorrow, northeast winds 20 to 25 knots, and Norton Sound, northeast 20, east 20, St. Lawrence Island, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. Pribilofs, northeast 15, lightest winds there for those seas at 11 feet. And then for Monday, northeast at 15 for the Pribilofs, and those seas come down to 6 feet, east 15 for the southwest coast, northeast 15, St. Matthew Island, east-northeast 15 to 20, St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound. And brisk wind advisories there for the far eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, out of the east at 20, otherwise diminishing here as you head west, down to 15 out of the east on the west and or central and west side, and then 20 knots from Wales to Cape Thompson. And then for Monday, northeast 20 knot winds here from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, western Arctic coast, east at 20, and brisk wind advisories there for the central coast, 25 knots, and 30 knot winds here on the east side. And for tonight, pretty good conditions really through much of the interior Alaska. Lingering precipitation here along the North Gulf Coast with increasing winds and wind and rain increasing Kodiak Island. And tomorrow that's going to bring the storm warnings into the North Gulf Coast here, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, 40 knot winds, southern Cook Inlet. Otherwise, kind of dry for the Panhandle. And the next system pushing eastward there into the far western Aleutians tracks to about that position on Monday, and the front weakens, but still rain and breezy for the Fox Islands. This front, not all that strong, will bring some rain and precipitation to the North Gulf Coast and Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.